Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Who's here from MBA 582? All right, fantastic. So we're really excited that today's today's discussion for MBA 582, Sustainability in Business Practicum, is a conversation with somebody who is really leading and innovating in this space. And I think it's going to provide an opportunity for us to really make the topics that we're discussing in this class much more real, much more tangible, and much more applied. And so who is joining us who's not here from MBA 582? A few folks. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to be able to open up this class discussion of MBA 582 to other students from across campus. I know we've got quite a few folks joining us over Zoom as well. So thank you so much to everybody for joining us over Zoom. We're excited because today is not just a class session of MBA 582, but in the Business Sustainability Collaborative. So actually, this is 582. Let me introduce myself to everyone who is not in the class. I'm Jessica Yinka-Thomas. I'm the director of our Business Sustainability Collaborative here in the Poole College of Management, and also an associate professor of the practice. And as part of the Business Sustainability Collaborative, we're really excited to be launching a career speaker series. And so we're doing, as we like to do here at NC State, multitasking with a class lecture, as well as an opportunity for you to hear from an alum from the Poole College. So you're going to have a chance to hear from Ron Jarvis, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer at Home Depot. Home Depot is the world's largest home improvement retailer, and we're really excited to have the opportunity to hear from somebody who was not in this building necessarily, but has his roots here in the business school here at NC State, and you'll get a chance to hear more about his career trajectory. Sustainability at Home Depot, some of the challenges and opportunities that Home Depot faces, as a way to give you a sense of what are some of the major challenges that business is facing more broadly when it comes to sustainability. And so I'm really excited that we're not just joined by one alum today, but actually two alumni. And so Rachel Haynes will be facilitating today's conversation. Rachel is a Jenkins MBA alum who decided just a few months ago to come back to the Poole College of Management to work with the Business Sustainability Collaborative as a program manager. And part of Rachel's role is launching our new career development resources, and this career speaker series is an important part of that. We're really excited that we'll be announcing, hopefully in the coming weeks, a new graduate business sustainability certificate that we'll be offering here in the Poole College of Management. And as we are increasingly focused on preparing you, our students, graduate and undergraduate as well, to address the grand challenges, right, that we face on a local level, on a global level, when it comes to social and environmental issues. We're excited to have as a companion to that graduate certificate this career speaker series and a much broader set of career development resources that we'll be sharing, as we hope that more and more students explore careers that are related to sustainability. Maybe one day you might be a chief sustainability officer as well. And we hope that if that is the case, you'll come back to campus and share what you've learned and really continue to connect with us here at NC State. So with that, I am going to hand things over to Rachel Haynes, and I want to thank everyone again for joining us today in the classroom over Zoom. Looking forward to a really great conversation. Rachel has some prepared questions to get the conversation started, but start writing down your questions for the students in 582. You've already read the Home Depot case, so I'm sure you came already with questions, but we'll leave plenty of time at the end for Q&A. All right, who's excited? All right, let's welcome Ron. Thank you so much, Ron, especially for coming in person. We are really delighted that you made the time to come speak. And
thanks for the invitation.
Students. So thank you both for being such incredible examples of NC State and Poole College alumni. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Jessica, for the awesome introduction. As Jessica said, I'm Rachel. I'm the program manager at the Business Sustainability Collaborative, and I'm a Jenkins 2021 alumni. Loved NC State so much I came back is what I like to say. And I have the pleasure of speaking today with Ron Jarvis, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer at the Home Depot. And I'm going to read his bio real quick for you all. Ron Jarvis is the Chief Sustainability Officer for the Home Depot. He is responsible for aligning the company's business strategies with its social, environmental, and sustainability objectives. He joined the company in 1995 as a merchant. He has held positions of increasing responsibility, including divisional merchandising manager, national product merchant, global product merchant, vice president of merchandising, and senior vice president of contract sales and tool rental. He is a past board member of the Home Depot Foundation. Prior to joining Home Depot, Ron spent 11 years at Lowe's in sales and marketing. And lastly, Ron has a bachelor's degree in business and economics from North Carolina State University. All right, so we're going to get into some questions, and then at the end, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So first, Ron, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and specifically when you were a little kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was like your career dream when you were a kid?
Well, I think like most kids had dreams of being sports stars, musicians. That's what I wanted to do. Being Chief Sustainability Officer at Home Depot wasn't even in the cards. So when you look at the dreams that you have as kids, it's a lot of people do get on the right trajectory, and you have to work into whatever your dream is into your profession. So if you love music, if you love sports, I still play guitar some, I still play sports all the time. So you just learn how to do what your dream was and keep going.
I love that. My dream was to be a chef on the Food Network.
Oh,
I still cook and I still watch Food Network.
there's still time.
There's still time. That's true. Does anyone in the audience, did you ever have a dream when you were a kid? Did you become like whatever that career goal was? Did anybody? I'm always curious. Or get close? No? Okay. But that's okay. As Ron said, you know, you can still do things that you're passionate about that connect to when you were a child. All right. So when you came to Poole College to study business and economics, what was your experience like? What did you take away from studying?
Well, I think, you know, like most people, you think you know how to study and work yourself through college before you get here. And then when you get here, you realize you don't. So there's the adjustment period. I worked a lot. I had part-time jobs, so I worked probably 20 to 30 hours a week, every week, with going to college. I was in a fraternity, I played rugby, did a lot of stuff people did, but I worked as well. So a lot of stuff taught me how to multitask. Love the place. When you graduate and you come back, you'll do like I did last night. Last night, I walked from the Brickyard out to the parking deck where I parked, and as you went through the tunnel, you smell things, you hear things that you think I haven't heard or smelt those in 30 years. And it comes back really fast, the memories you have. So lots of great memories made here. Love NC State.
Fantastic. And so after you graduated from NC State, what were you looking for in like a job after you graduated? And why did you choose, I guess, the home improvement retail industry?
Well, I grew up in North Wilkesboro. And for those of you that know where North Wilkesboro is, it was Lowe's Home Improvement. It was their headquarters. So, and my mother was working at the local store there. So during the summers, I'd worked there some in high school and college. So I knew a lot of the folks there. And if I took a job there, I could live at home. To me, it was about the money. You know, how can I make the most money getting out of college? And knew the home improvement business was a great business and growing business. And knew if I went to work at Lowe's, I could live at home for a couple of years and save money and then go do what I wanted to do. But stayed there, came in as an assistant buyer, and I had the hardware department and really loved the dynamics. I mean, you think of a small town in North Carolina and the amount of reach that you have working for a big company like that, where you fly to China and you put together deals, or you fly to Brazil and you look at wood products, and then you're back in a small town, you know, the next week. Lots of opportunities to have both, be able to see the world, be part of a global company, but then live the small town life as well. So I really, enjoyed that the first couple of years. And then after that, it was in my blood. I love the home improvement business. I mean, it is you think of all the things that are necessities, food and then shelter. And if you think of shelter, whether it's a building like this or whether you're home, everybody has to have it. So that business is never going to fade away. There's never going to be a fad where that business disappears. So I looked at that and said, for career sustainability and growth, it's a great industry to be in.
That's incredible. Yeah, I feel like this industry has a huge impact, as you mentioned. Housing is
Right.
huge, shelter is so important. So that's
And
great.
if, Rachel, if you look at that, what I saw happen was, as I would go to places, I would think, there's better ways to do this. And it wasn't in sustainability. Sustainability wasn't in my blood at all at the time. But I would look at things. I remember one of the first categories I had was insulation. And you look at insulation that's like in behind this room above the ceiling tiles. It's probably a fiberglass or some type of composite insulation. And there was a company that was taking newspaper and magazines and thrashing it and beating it up and making that into insulation as well. And what we found there was that was probably more sustainable than some of the others. And that's, I said, that's, if I can push that industry to better things, then I should do it everywhere I go.
It's a great model. Well, you got ahead of me because next we were going to talk about sustainability.
We can talk about it again.
Perfect. So when did you first become interested in sustainability? It sounds like maybe part of that story you just told there.
And if you look, I see that we need to speak up a little bit.
Yes, just,
Oh, sorry.
a little bit more. Yeah, would that help? Yeah, thank you.
Is the microphone working?
Yes, the mic is on, let me put the volume up, but mostly Rachel.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So if you look at sustainability, and I look at a point to where I don't think that all of a sudden the light went off and I go, oh, this is sustainability. I love it. It was part of an evolution that you look and go, okay, what's doing the right thing, right? Doing the right thing is not buying a product that has chemicals that could create endocrine interrupters or could be bad for youth or could be bad for anyone. It's saying if there's replacements, even if it's EPA approved and everything, if there's replacements, let's make it better. If you're buying wood from an area that's maybe not developed where they don't have sustainable forest, if you can change that, then change it. So that's been, at least for the past 35 years, when I look at product categories, and I've had many product categories inside of Home Depot, I look at those and go, one of the first things I always did was, what's the impact of this and how can I reduce it? Now, when sustainability became part of my title was 2000, I got a call from one of the founders of Home Depot, and I was a divisional merchandise manager in Tampa, Florida, at the divisional office there. And he called and he said, you've had a lot of experience in wood products. We're getting protested. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Could you step in and take a new role that we're going to create called the Environmental Global Product Manager and help clean this mess up that we're in? And we'd had 600 protests in 18 months, and we're just getting tons of negative press. And the way we were handling it at the time was we had a community affairs department in Atlanta. And at that time, Home Depot was decentralized. So we had 11 different buying offices doing their own thing. So no two people were buying the same type of lumber or anything like that. So we needed someone to step in and talk to the environmental groups and figure out what we're doing. If we're doing anything wrong, figure out how to correct it and then correct it. And so in 2000, it became part of my title. Now, since 2000, I've had many jobs. Most of the jobs you've read, I've had since 2000, but always bolted on to everything I did was sustainability. So whether I was running tool rental or pro sales or MVP for departments, also was it wasn't the chief sustainability title, but it was the chief sustainability role for the company. So for 23 years, I've had sustainability.
Years.
Yes.
Amazing. Wow. And so can we get into the slides a little bit about all of the sustainability initiatives here at Home Depot? If you're not working, would you click the slide?
Of course, it was working.
Yeah. And you can, yeah. Perfect. that when you think of Home Depot and the touch points, there's thousands of touch points that we have in sustainability. And everything that you see on this slide, whether it's GMOs or carbon emissions or water use, we have a work stream behind them that we work on for those issues. And, there's thousands of those. And we get calls all the time from different groups. I remember a couple of years ago, I got a call from the Women's Club in Long Island, where they're getting ready to protest Home Depot because they were tired of getting woken up on the weekends with loud leaf blowers. And they're saying, everybody's buying these leaf blowers from Home Depot. You're the ones that can fix it. So we're going to protest you until you do. So I kind of talked them off the ledge and said, no, let's work. Let's figure out how we're going to do this. And so we'd been working on electric leaf blowers for years. So we shipped a bunch up there, have coupons for discounts and things like that. So we started listening. We always listen to the customers. I don't care if it's somebody sends an email and says, I hate Home Depot because of this, or if it's Greenpeace, we give them both the same amount of attention. So for all the things that we have, and it's funny because everything falls into three buckets when you look at environmental impacts inside of Home Depot. The first one is the products. That's the biggest impact, is products that we sell. The second is operations, our buildings, building a Home Depot store, building a distribution center, and the third is the supply chain. So if you look at where we take that, this is the protest that led me to stepping into this role. So this was before I was moved into the role. This was one of our buildings. For those of you who've been to Atlanta, there's the Beltway called 285. This building was right beside the Beltway. So when this happened in the morning, helicopters were out there, traffic stopped all the way around the Beltline. And this group, and it just so happens, I was in Tampa at the time, but I was up in Atlanta for a meeting. And so since I was the only one there that knew anything about lumber purchases, they asked me to come down and talk to these people when we got them out. Now, they were all young. They were 18, 19 years old. They didn't realize that this was a felony. They didn't realize that you can't do this on private property. So we had the police there. We're talking to them saying, this is a felony. This is going to be on your record forever. You're not going to be able to get jobs because of this act that you did today. And I mean, they were crying. They were upset. They were calling their parents, but they did it. And we told the police, we said, we're not going to press charges, but let's scare them. Let's let them know that they shouldn't do this. There's better ways to do it. But the good news is, since then, we haven't had any protest. I mean, everything that comes up, we don't wait for 16, months or for 600 protests. We address the issues as soon as they pop up, and we get the people in the room to fix it, whether it's carbon emissions, chemical exposure, deforestation, whatever it is. We work with the groups to find out what their issues are. And if their issues are legitimate, then we work to fix them. So I'll just quickly go through a couple of these, Rachel, if you don't mind. So you look at these and you go, if that happened today, what do you do? Well, a lot of people say, they're tree huggers. They're never going to be happy. If you talk to them about this, they'll be back tomorrow with something else. You can let the industry step up and talk for you, because we don't cut trees. We're not Weyerhaeuser. We're not Georgia Pacific. We're not Canfor. They cut the trees. They should be the ones taking the brunt and be in front of this issue. Or you can take responsibility for it, which is what we did. So what I did was I called all the environmental groups that were mad at Home Depot. They hadn't been able to talk to Home Depot for 2 years. They were talking to a consulting group that Home Depot had hired to say, here, you talk to the environmental groups. And when I came in, I looked at it and I said, this is crazy. Why would we do this? So we had at the time, Arthur Anderson, KPMG, I think Ernst & Young, all working on it, saying it was probably going to take 4 years and millions of dollars to resolve. And so after about 2 weeks, I brought everybody in and fired all the consultants and said, okay, we're done. You guys can go home. And 2 weeks later, I had all the environmental groups in Atlanta, and we sat down in a room in a circle, and I said, bring it on. Tell me what's wrong. What are we doing wrong? Why are you mad? Where do you think we're destroying the world's forest? What are the issues around those, whether it's indigenous people rights or whether it's species depletion? Let's talk about it. So for 2 days, we just listed all the issues. And I said, okay, what I need from you is a timeout. I need 2 years for you not to protest Home Depot or say anything negative about us while I research this. And they agreed to. So you look at this and okay, it should be pretty easy. You look at the Home Depot store, in this aisle, there's about 63 different items in that 2x4/8, plywood and everything. And we said, okay, it'll be pretty simple to go through this. We talked to our big lumber suppliers. But as we did, in this aisle, there's 600. Then we went to the plywood aisle, went to the flooring aisle, went to the tool aisle. And what we found was as we went through, more and more products. So it went from 60 items to 500 items to 2,000 products to 4,000 products to, at that time, 9,000 products in the store that had wood. And including like the little wooden piece on the bottom of the ceiling fan chain where you pull it. We walked to the store and I said, has this on our list? And they go, no. And I go, well, we put it on the list. So went through and got everything that was wood, 2 parallel paths. Where does the wood come from? What country? And then what's happening inside of that country? Is it good or bad? Because as you saw the sign, Home Depot is destroying the world's forest. So we need to know. So for 2 years, we dissected everything, flew all over the world, went into the Amazon, went into different parts of European forest, Southeast Asia forest, went to the United Nations Forum of Forest to sit down and hear what's really happening from every angle. And at that point, we came back and said, there's a lot of stuff happening that we don't really want to be a part of. So we moved at least $100 million of purchases from certain places. Like this is a picture of Malaysia. And we said, Malaysia is switching over from native forest to palm oil. Now, if you would have come back 10 years later, this wouldn't look like this. It would be a thriving forest, but it's a thriving forest of palm trees. And it was native hardwoods. So you can go in and deforest an area, plant it back in something that's not native. And when you fly over it, it looks like it's great. But as far as biodiversity goes, it's not. You've just converted huge parts of nature inside of this area. So at the end of 2 years, we called all the groups back together and we said, we found some stuff. When you go in and you cut wood in North Carolina or Alabama or Georgia, you don't see large deforestation. You don't see big clear cuts of big land. You may displace a squirrel or a rabbit or deer has to run over to the other side. But when you start going in and displacing primates for a hammer, on the hammer, handle on the hammer, you look at that and go, there's probably better places to get this wood. So we set policies saying there's certain parts of the world that we don't really want wood from. And if you do, it has to be this level. But in most cases, when someone brings us something from the Amazon or Congo, I don't know of any programs that we have from the Amazon or Congo. And when we do find them, we convert them to something else really fast. And it's nothing like you would think. It's not the lumber department or plywood or fencing. It's the new .com item that somebody brought in that's a cane and they're getting certified wood from the Amazon. And we go, no, we don't want that. You're gonna have to buy it from somewhere else. So the things that we found really helped us. And so as we did, we looked at this, said, okay, 80% of our wood comes from North America. The North American forests are probably the most sustainable forest in the world. When you think of Canada and you think of the US has more growing forest land today than it did in 1990. So, and we produce, if you take US and Canada, we produce almost as much roundwood as the rest of the world combined. When you think about that, we produce almost as much roundwood as the rest of the world combined, and our forests are growing. And you're okay, that's the true definition of sustainability. Now, you don't want to have monoculture where you go in and cut native forest and plant it back in palm oil trees. You want to make sure that it's done right. And so we look at this and say, yeah, we're actually really proud of our purchases now. So when we sit down with the NGOs, we'll go toe to toe and say, let's talk about it. You tell us your issues. All of a sudden, at the end of that 2-year period, we knew more than they did. So we had a meeting at the basement of the NRDC headquarters in San Francisco. I took in a book for every NGO, Greenpeace, Sierra Club, NRDC. I handed them all a book and said, okay, for the next 8 hours, you're going to have insight into something you've never seen. It's where all the wood from Home Depot comes from, the countries that it comes from, and the issues surrounding those countries. And the last page is conversions that we've made over the past 2 years. So at the end of that, we were no longer a catalyst that they used to make things happen. We were one of the first people they called when they needed information. And that kind of changed the way we handled environmental concerns at Home Depot. So now when someone calls and says, we've got a problem with whatever this product is, we don't just say, well, the vendor told us it's okay, or it's EPA approved. We say, let's put together a quick work stream. Let's find out what's happening inside of this product. Let's find out what the perception is from, consumers. And let's look at the science and let's make a decision. A lot of times we go back and say, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. Here's what really happens. Other times you go, yeah, it looks like there could be some answers that they can't answer, questions they can't answer. So we're going to change the way we buy or where we buy. And other times we just say, hey, you were right. We're out of it completely. So having that type of relationship with stakeholders has kind of helped us through this process to where I think we do have credibility with a lot of the environmental groups where they go, if you go to Home Depot, if you surprise them, which rarely you do, but if you do, they're going to take the time to do the due diligence. They're not going to hold a hand up and say, don't, we know it's okay. So I don't know. So it's funny because we had the policies around the Amazon, and this is a place in the Amazon called Rhodonia. And a supplier came to us and said, we're buying products from Rhodonia, but you don't have to worry about it because it's all sustainable. And this was in 2018 or 2017. And I said, it's still in the Amazon. And they go, yeah, but we're on the outskirts. So if you look at the forest and you can see where the forests are, well, that was 1980, what was it? So 87 to 2018. This is probably not sustainable forest. And the reason it's not sustainable forest in the Amazon is you have a tremendous amount of indigenous people living there that are just waiting for the wood to be cut down so they can plant something to get an annual income. Whether it's grass for cattle, whether it's soybeans, whether it's corn, they need the forest land. So as soon as the forest is cut, rarely is it planted back as forest. So we look at this and go, we don't want any part of the Amazon. So we set the policy in 2018 saying we don't take anything from the Amazon, Congo Basin, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, unless it's FSC certified. And honestly, we don't really want FSC certified out of there. We usually transition away from that to something else just because we just rather not be a part of it. So with that, the 1,000 touch points that we have, and it's interesting because with 1,000 touch points, they all fall down to 5 buckets. And so regardless of what your concern is with a product at Home Depot or an issue with Home Depot, it is one of these 5 things. It is either carbon emissions, chemical exposure, deforestation, which we include mining, water use, waste, and recycle. So everything that happens falls into one of those 5 buckets. So it's easy for us when a supplier comes in and sits down, we've got a new program. The first thing I do is go, well, what's your impact? We had a fertilizer company come to us one day, and I think fertilizer's biggest impact is chemicals on the ground and stormwater runoff. So when a fertilizer company comes to me, and then when you produce fertilizer, it takes a lot of heat. So a tremendous amount of carbon emissions come from fertilizer production. So the fertilizer company came to us and they said, Ron, you're going to love us because we have the new green fertilizer. And I go, great, it's got to be manure because that's the new green fertilizer. And they said, no, we have reduced the pallet sizes that we use to transport product to Home Depot stores. So it's less carbon emitted through the trucks that we ship it on. So it's now the green fertilizer. I said, you're going to hate me because we're never going to say this. And we're never going to let you say that when you're talking about Home Depot. So you can never talk about selling this green fertilizer at Home Depot because that's not your impacts. You do have impacts from moving it and transporting it through carbon emissions, but it's small compared to everything else. So when you address products, we want you to address what the big issues are. And that's pretty much the way we handle everything. And like I walk through the stores and every year I sit down and create a list of what I think the biggest environmental impacts are for products. Is it carpet? Think of all the carpet that we sell. We sell 40 million square yards of carpet. Think of all the paint, hundreds of millions of gallons of paint that we sell. You go, okay, what's those environmental impact? They have to be pretty huge. And so we address those. When we look at paint, we think that, chemical exposure and volatile organic compounds was one of the biggest issues that you have with paint. So we were one of the first retailers to go to low and no VOC paint So now when you buy paint from Home Depot, you don't have to go buy a specialty paint from the green environmental paint store. All the paint that you buy from Home Depot is either low or no VOC paint. The first year we did that, we took out 27 million gallons of pollutants, VOCs, in the air when people used the paint. So we didn't market it as green paint. It wasn't a big celebration. You didn't hear it in the news. It was just a better product. And that's what I tell the merchants all the time. I sat down with the merchants about 5 years ago and I said, listen, we walk into a store and we see certified green this, certified green that, and we track it in a program that we call Eco Actions. And of that, it's about $14 billion in sales, which is a lot, but it's still less than 10% of our sales. So I said, let's stop focusing on green products. So just stop buying green products. Now let's go green the products that we buy. So you think of the other 86%. What's in them that we could take out to make them a little better? They wouldn't be certified. They're not going to be Green Guard Gold. They're not going to be UL labeled, but they're going to be a little better than they were last year. And so when we look at product categories, we do that. And there's not much fanfare that comes with that. But then when an environmental group or a stakeholder comes in and sits down and says, okay, we want to talk to you about taking toluene out of paint or triclosans out of paint. We go, we already did it. That's gone. We put together a paint policy in 2017. So it helps. And that's why you don't see Home Depot on the front page of a lot of newspapers and articles about sustainability issues.
Okay, so it sounds like the Home Depot really has a lot of accountability, a lot of transparency as a part of your strategy to engage with outside stakeholders, particularly on sustainability. And, I'm curious, especially when you got into this role and working with those different groups that were protesting your company, which has got to be a little bit nerve-wracking initially. What challenges do you face in this type of role as a chief sustainability officer? And what keeps you motivated when the times do get challenged?
Probably one of the toughest things to manage in this is the emotions, because you'll sit down with someone who has for maybe years or at least months been thinking about this issue, and they're ready just to rip your throat out because of either what they've heard or what they know. And you can't just come in and say, no, we're Home Depot, we've got it handled, we're transparent, because that really makes them mad. You have to sit down and say, okay, you obviously know something I don't know. So you educate me now. You tell me what I need to know, where you got the information, where is it, how can I find it? Let's go walk it. Let's walk the stores, let's walk a factory, let's look at what the issues are. And let's, start at least on the second meeting at the same level of knowledge going into it. Because then it kind of diffuses the situation. We get educated. They get a chance to get what's on their chest off their mind, and then it tends to work better. But there's, when you go into those 5 pillars that are still up there, I'd probably ask the class, I would love to know, which one do you think is the most important? And when someone comes in, it's usually just one of those that they're after. And if they're after stormwater runoff and fertilizer, they don't care if the bags are recycled. They don't care if it's shipped on a smaller pallet. All they want to talk about is the pillar that they're interested in. And so that's what, we tend to focus real fast on. What is your concern? Because I know it makes me angry when I sit down with someone and ask, okay, this is what I want to talk about, and they try to drift me over here and talk about something different. So we always say, okay, what's your concern and how do we address it? And the sustainability issues, you look at the sustainability issues that are facing the world today. We had, people, planet, products, profits, whatever the last P was that people put in it. But it was always people and planet that we talked about. And that is, okay, as Homo sapiens, what are we doing that's making the world a worse place? And you look at that and go, well, about everything we do. I mean, there's very few things that we do that makes the world a better place. There's things that we do that reduce our impact. Like people ask me, what's the greenest company in the world? And I go, well, There is no green companies. Home Depot is not a green company. The greenest company in the world, the only company in the world that's green, is if you're a company that's organic gardener down by the river, getting your water from the river and using organics for your fertilizer, and you're hauling it to the market on a wagon. Probably a green company. Everybody else, not a green company. Because whatever it is, NC State green, you're not green. Look at the power that we're using. Look at the trees you cut down, plant these to put the buildings. So for people to say we're the green company, you're not. You're the company that's trying to reduce your environmental impact. And that's where you need to start and say, we were up here, now we're here. Well, we could have gone there, but we didn't. We stopped, and this is what we're doing. And this is the reasons why we're trying to be a greener company. We're a better company. So sustainability issues are huge, and it's in every industry and it's in every department. So when someone says, what's the sustainability issues at Home Depot? I go, everything. Every product you see is a sustainability concern. But as a society, we need to say, all right, there's lots of shiny objects in sustainability. Last time I was here, we talked about plastic straws. Plastic straws. Most folks that I sit down with, if I say, let's make a list of the 3 things in the world that at least us in America are doing to make the world a worse place. Now, we are the largest consumer of plastic in the world. No one consumes as much per capita per person than we do. So they go, well, plastic's the biggest issue. I go, why? And they said, because there's more plastic in the ocean than fish. I go, okay, how many fish are in the ocean? They go, we don't know, but we know there's more plastic. And then I ask, what percentage of the plastic in the ocean comes from the US, from us? Most people think that it's 80, 90%, 50%. Does anyone know the answer? It's less than 2%. So the fact that we took straws out of NC State and put in paper straws, that's good. That's not the issue. The issue is 3 rivers that are in China and Africa that dump 85% of the plastic into the ocean. Now, what has NC State done to help that? That's the question you ask. Don't take plastic straws out of your cafeteria thinking you're going to create a solution to the ocean's plastic. So that's the kind of detail that you have to know. So when someone comes in, whether it's a supplier or a stakeholder, and says, we're going to do something, we want you to make a move because of this issue, we go, okay, then let's talk about the issue. Talk about deforestation. We had a shareholders proposal 2022 about deforestation, that Home Depot needs to have a big report on deforestation. Now, most of the deforestation is happening in 2 countries. It's the DRC and Brazil. That's where most of the deforestation is happening. But the solution that they wanted was to have a deforestation policy for Canada. Well, Canada has probably one of the lowest amount of deforestation of any country in the world, because when they cut the trees down, they plant them back. Most of it's owned by the government up there. So the crown owns the land. So when you cut a tree up there, I think it's 10 to 15 years, you have to manage that land. So in 10 to 15 years, it's a thriving forest. So you look at this and go, okay, if you're coming after us with deforestation in Canada, that doesn't fit. If you want to talk about some other issues in Canada, let's do it, but let's not confuse it. But in sustainability, people take the shiny objects and they use that to push whatever the agenda is. So you have to know what is the true issue inside the agenda and what's the cause of the problem. We don't want deforestation. We don't want to convert, large natural forest into monoculture or plantations or stuff like that. Plantations are great. I love plantations. I've been to plantations all through South America that were scrub forest or grassland, where they planted just rows, miles and miles of plantation. Plantation, tremendous carbon sink, captures a tremendous amount of carbon when you're growing that many pine trees or eucalyptus trees. But you wouldn't want to cut down all of Canada and plant it in plantations. You wouldn't want to go into the Amazon or Malaysia and cut the native forest and plant it in palm trees. So you have to have that knowledge to know what the issues are. And I'm sorry, that was a very long answer to a short question.
No, that was great. I like how you keep telling us about all the examples of the things that you have worked on at Home Depot. It gives light to what your day-to-day really is like, and all these different things that you're working on. talking a little bit more about the Chief Sustainability Officer role. I just want to share this data point from the Wine Red Group. They release a report every single year about CSOs, and they've been doing so since 2011. In 2011, there were 29 CSOs, and in 2023, there are 183. So this role is growing, evolving. More corporations are interested in having a Chief Sustainability Officer. So I'm curious, one, about your role. How do you see your role evolving in the future, and how do you see the role, I guess, within larger corporations evolving in the future?
And I think most companies have had someone doing the chief sustainability role in different functions for years. I mean, you look at what I've been doing for 23 years at Home Depot. There was someone before me that had environmental in their title. So, you know, most companies have been working on it for a while. I look at the new highlighting of a chief sustainability officer and that function inside of companies, and the shiny objects, the noise, there's a lot of that. It's reducing carbon emissions, blah, 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 reducing energy use, blah, 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 reducing water ratio. And you go through and you go, okay, but was that important? Is that really what you need to be working on? So, and with ESG makes it a little bit more. The great thing about ESG is it gives it the highlight. It now has a platform, it has a stage. Almost every boardroom across America and across the world today, at least once a year, gets an ESG update. Now, ESG, in my mind, has diluted some things to where ESG covers everything. When you think of environmental, social, and government, that's it. I mean, anything you do, from the clothes that we're wearing, to the cars that we're driving, to the emissions that we have, I mean, it's all covered under ESG. So now when you're talking ESG, your arena got really big, and you have to be an expert in a lot of things. I look at the true impacts and say, okay, as a society, what are we doing? What's the worst things we're doing? Well, you know, climate change has been happening for 4 billion years. It comes and goes. You look at it and go, has man affected climate change? I don't think there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, you can't have the amount of pollution that we have, 40 billion gigatons a year, like gigatons of billion tons that we emit, and not have an impact. So we're having an impact. So we need to stop that. And if we think that's the biggest thing, because straws in the ocean, plastic in the ocean is bad, we need to fix that. If you look at carbon emissions, things that we're doing, if somebody put in a new carpet in this auditorium and it has, you know, VOCs or some type of chemical that could affect us indoor air quality, we need to fix that. But if we're heating up the earth at a point to where it will not be reversible, that's probably the most important thing we do. If we took all the money, we took all the emphasis that we're doing on ESG across the board today and said, all right, for the next 18 months, let's focus on the E and let's focus on carbon emissions, which is the combustible engine. So if we could fix the combustible engine to where we could replace it with something that did not emit CO2 or CO, then we would be way ahead of the game. Then we could say, okay, that's done. You know, have we already committed enough sins and carbon emissions to where it's not going to be reversible? We won't know for a few years now, but at least we know we stopped it, and give nature a chance to correct itself. And that's the great thing about nature. It usually does correct itself. So when I look at that, sustainability is broad. And I love it when I sit down with a sustainability person, and like we have 50,000 suppliers. So if I sit down with a sustainability person from Owens Corning or DuPont or Dow Chemical, and they're going, you know, here's our ESG policy or our sustainability mantra, and they're all over the board, you know, we're doing this, we're doing that. I go, but what's your impact? If you're Dow Chemical, chemical exposure is going to be your impact. Why don't you focus on that for the next 15 minutes? That's all I want to hear. What are you doing there? So it's great that sustainability is out there and that people are talking about it, but it needs to not take away from the true issues inside of a company that don't lead with a sustainability banner that is so bright and so loud that people can't see what you're doing. So, and I hope that didn't confuse the room, but because that's probably not what you're hearing in sustainability classes.
All right, awesome. And so Can we talk a little bit about, I think maybe later in the slides, maybe it was this slide. At Home Depot, how do you measure, manage, communicate your impact? So as you kind of started talking about ESG.
We'll just flip through a couple of those. Plastic, we're gonna come back to that communication. Let me just touch on this. I was walking a store with a gentleman from Trex. Trex is a wood composite decking product that replaces exotic wood. So you can have a piece of Trex and a piece of mahogany or teak, and from 10 feet away, you can't tell the difference. So what they use is it's basically 50% plastic and 50% sawdust to make this product. So if you're using that, you don't have to go out and cut down mahogany trees or teak trees to get a beautiful exotic looking deck. And so we're walking, I go, where are you getting your plastic? And he said, we're having to buy it from all over. And we're in the back of a store. And I said, look, could you guys use this? And he said, oh, in a heartbeat. He said, but you have to make sure it's clean. We just want to use a shrink wrap. We don't want to go to 2,000 stores. Can you consolidate it? So our supply chain group looked at this and said, yeah, we can actually do that. So now when you see the back of a Home Depot store, all that plastic in the wraps, all that goes to Trex. Trex takes that and turns it into beautiful decking. So all the waste coming out of the back of Home Depot store goes to Trex, comes back to us as beautiful decking. And that works so well, we said, let's do the same thing with Glad. So we took Clorox, which is Glad, and they came in and sat down, let's take all of the plastic from your distribution centers, your MDOs, which when you buy appliance from Home Depot, all that plastic goes to Glad trash bags. So as a society, since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution for 150 years, we've taken below ground resources. So we've dug stuff out of the ground. You think of the coal, the oil, the gas, everything that we can. In doing so, we've created a lot of above ground resources. So what we have to do now is capture all the above ground resources and use those instead of below ground resources, which is what these products do. Now, how do you educate that? How do you tell people that? How many people knew either one of those? Anyone? Oh, we got one person. No one else did. We look at this and go, is that where we want to spend our advertising dollars? Is that going to help us for sales for this weekend? Or should we say 10 bags or 5 bags of mulch for $10? Which one's going to bring more people into the store? So as a public company, you have a fiduciary responsibility to drive shareholder value. And shareholder value, I look at as anybody that owns stock. And how do you get more value for their stock every year? We do that with driving sales. I look at it and go, because I spent 24 years as a merchant in business. And to me, that gave me the background I needed to talk reality and sustainability. Because when people say, we can do this, we can do that, I go, no, you can't, or yes, you can, this is great. So you look at that and go, how do you manage that? How do you take money from budgeting for marketing that you're going to spend on mulch or paint and tell a sustainability message? Because most people, everybody cares. If I went through, everybody here would care. But how many people would want to, spend time listening to a Home Depot pitch on sustainability or pay more for mulch? Now it's $11 instead of $10 because I took $1 to tell an environmental message. That doesn't work. People say they want to do it, but they don't. So we created I'm not sure if it's on there, but we created a lot of good stuff. We created a website called Eco Actions. So now when someone calls me and says, can you tell us anything you're doing? I'll go, yeah, we've developed a website called Eco Actions. Go on to Eco Actions, and in there, we'll answer most of your questions. And then look at our ESG responsibility report. So I'm always going back and forth with marketing, saying you have to say this message. And my point is, we have, especially with Labor Day coming up, we're gonna have a paint sale, whatever it is, $5 off 20 gallons or $20 off 5 gallons, whatever the number is. And that's what you're gonna hear if you listen to the radio or if you get an digital ad from Home Depot. I always say, that's a 30-second commercial. Give me 10 to 7 seconds at the end of that. And let me say, all of Home Depot's paints are low or no VOC. We've taken 27 million pounds of pollutants out of the air. And when you buy Behr paint, 100% of the can is 100% post-consumer recycled content. So the whole can has been used before. This is its second life. And we sell over 100 million cans of paint a year. So that's a lot of recycled content. No one knows that. No one in this room had any idea any of that existed. But if you heard that and you go, $20 off 5 gallons, and it's the right thing to do, and they're making their impact a little bit less on the environmental side. Yeah, if I've got a chance to, turn blue or turn orange, I'm going to turn orange because I heard that message. That's what I think that we need to do. And that's what I'm always pushing, saying, we've got to say that now's the time. The young folks sitting at NC State and other colleges and universities across the world, they care. They want to know. They say, you call it, no one cares, but show me someplace where I can go look for myself. You guys are smart enough. You don't want me to tell you what to do. You don't want me to say, this is the direction and this is the advice I give you, now go do it. You just want to hear me and hear about 15 other people and say, okay, I'm going to make my own mind up. I liked what he said, but I didn't believe this part. So I'm going to do part of this and I'm going to do part of that. So what you need is access to transparency, to where you can pull it up and look for yourself, and then you make your own decisions. And that's why when we talk about educating customers and having people you walk into a Home Depot store or any store, and the salesperson walks up to you. If it's something in sustainability, environmental, chances are you've done your own homework. You're not going to believe hardly anything that person in the apron says to you, because you're going to think, I know more than you do. I've researched it. I'm ahead of you, and this is what I'm going to do. But what we need to do is give you insight and transparency where to find this information. So if you are concerned about VOCs, or you are concerned about deforestation, or you are concerned about, getting the toilet that uses least amount of water, then you can find a place that will give you that information. Not, blaring on the radio, or you open up the Home Depot circular and there's all the green messages. You don't want that, but you want to know when you do want to find the information, there's a place to find it. And that's what we've done with this. We're the only company that I'm aware of that has a site like this, that has this type of detailed information. And we started this in 2007. And I'll just give you just a quick story. Inside of big corporations, fiduciary responsibility, drive sales, drive gross margin, turn inventory, shareholder return. That's what it's about. Now, if there's another group over there keeping people off your back and getting it to where you can do your job better, great for them. I'm that other people. For 24 years, I was this group. I'd say, sales gross margin, we got to do it. So if you have somebody over there protecting you, saying this is the right thing to do, it takes a tremendous amount of pressure off of the people running the business to make it happen. So we want to do this website. I go to our CEO and our CFO and said, I need a certain amount of money, thousands of dollars. 2007, if anyone ever goes back and looks at the history books, 2007 was a terrible year. Home Depot lost $15 billion in sales, $15 billion in sales, 2007, 2008, 2009. All of a sudden I show up waving the green flag saying, I need some money because people care. And they go, have you looked at our spreadsheet? We're losing money. The answer is no. So I sit down and I go, I've got to track carbon and I need a responsibility report. So I just got an email the day before from Greenbuild. Greenbuild is the biggest green show in the world. It's where all the green companies get together, and they sent a note saying, would Home Depot do a booth at Greenbuild? And so I'm sitting there thinking, I don't have money to do a booth, can't do it. But I know vendors would probably support me. So I called the suppliers and said, I need two things. I need for you to help us with the cost of the booth, and I need a little extra money that I'm doing with a side project. And I got 15 suppliers to agree, and I came up with enough money to start the website and have the first ESG report. Now, the company looked at it and said, great, go do whatever you can do. The more you can do, the better. We're there for you. But we're not going to take the company marketing money to do that. So what's happened today is that's changed. Most companies today do set aside marketing funds and money for ESG reports, for responsibility insight, and things like that. But in 2007, it wasn't even on the radar. So communication, there's a lot of different ways to do it. We have our ESG report, which we have on our built from scratch section of the Home Depot. And then we have Eco Actions, which is separate.
Well, that was all the questions I had prepared, so we're gonna open it up to the audience for questions. And I do want to ask the audience, do we have anyone who's interested in potentially becoming a chief sustainability officer in the future? Yeah.
All right.
Okay, a couple people. Okay, so this is your opportunity to ask somebody who's really in the role, so definitely ask the question.
Hey Ron, my name is Malharsha. Thank you so much for your time today. I guess you mentioned quite a bit about, right, as an organization, you have a fiduciary responsibility to at SBA, right? And so I guess what have been the costs and benefits of incorporating sustainability into your practices? And then at Home Depot, right, what does the process look like? When does a sustainability conversation happen? Because you talked about how there's this whole sales organization, right? But then there are these other guys, right? So what kind of friction do you get, or how does that work?
It's a great question, and I see it two different ways. Especially when someone steps into a sustainability role that just has sustainability for a background and doesn't know the business. Because the first thing they do is they sit down with the leaders of the company and they go, we have to integrate sustainability into the company. And salespeople are going, all right, we're busy. What do we need to do? And they start pushing things to them, saying, you need to come up with a list of all things you do in sustainability. One of the things that's helped us is the experience that we have in operations, in merchandising. So we kind of know what the issues are. So it's interesting because we had a new person join Home Depot a few years ago, and they said, what's the cost of sustainability? We look at the wood purchasing policy, we look at all these chemical programs, we look at these leadership awards that we've won, like 17 different EPA awards. There has to be a tremendous cost that comes with that. And I go, you know what the cost is? And they go, yes, we want to know exactly what it is. Millions, billions, what is it? I said, zero. I said, what we have is the salary of our department. That's what it's cost. When you think of what a wood purchasing policy costs, if you have someone going through doing the due diligence and coming back saying, okay, this is our new wood purchasing policy. We didn't pay consultants to go do that. When you look at our chemical, our whole chemical strategy, no consultants involved in that at all. So no cost. My point is, if you do it right, and if you integrate it into the business and you get ahead of it and say, this is an issue that we have, it's 2023, by 2026, we're going to fix it. So all the people that are causing the issue, whether it's suppliers or transporters or store operators, you've got 3 years to fix it. And here's the tools we're going to give you to make it better when we get there. So there's a way to run sustainability to where you do not bankrupt the company, to where you don't take, you look at sustainability and every product category that we have, there's trajectories that the industry's on. All right, this guy's trying to put less metal. This guy's taking out his plastic. This lady wants to reduce the packaging because of this. So they're all heading in the right directions. So when you look at goals, what I do for a goal should never pivot the company. Because if you look at trajectory, if you take, like paint, and we say, okay, we've got 10 chemicals that we want to take out of paint, and we want to have it by this time. We have 3 suppliers already doing it, 3 that aren't. So let's give everybody the same date and say, this is where you have to be. So a goal, and we just set 9 new goals 3 weeks ago. A goal should be transparency that tells the public and the stakeholders where you foresee the company going and where you want to take it. And it should be in line with the principles, and it should be in line with the formula that you have to run your business today. If you get to a point to where you have to set a goal and the company has to take a pivot, then you're in trouble. I mean, you've ran into something that you should have addressed years ago. So for most cases, sustainability should be taken into a company without a big price tag, saying these are our concerns, these are our issues, and people don't expect a company to come out and say, we're doing this and we're going to stop it Tuesday. They expect companies to come out and say, we're recognizing that this is a problem or an issue, and we're going to take this amount of time to get there. And in doing so, we're not going to wreck the financials for the company. And I hope that answered your question, but, and it's, you've got to have people working inside those departments that have the same mentality. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I was curious your perspective. So I think in relation to the rainforest, a lot of stories, like an accusation happened, they seem to be the loudest aspect of like the story, and like the news cycle we had at hand to the point where people then move on to the next one. The answer comes out, it's much quieter for the accusations. Or in your scenario where they were kind of wrong and you dug into it, what's your perspective on going about that type of situation? I mean, you said you talked directly to them, but do you feel that you guys got your message out strong enough, as strong as like an accusation was against the company?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that we do it early. Once it's out there, you're guilty.
Right.
Regardless of what it is. Once it's out there, you're guilty. So we try to stop it before it gets there. There was a couple issues that we still have going on with suppliers. One is Ecuador. We've got an issue in Ecuador where the person that had the information was, I won't say they're wrong, but they were misguided in what the information they had. So we proved to them they were wrong, sat down and said, what do you want to do? This is what we need to change. And they go, what we need is for you to pull out of this area completely. Stop shipping anything from there. And so we did. Within 3 months, we're gone. Our supplier packed it up, closed the sawmill, moved out completely. Now, that hurt their cause because now they don't have a catalyst to push with Home Depot as their target. Everyone listens. So, you know, it's once it happens, the damage is done. And, you know, you go back and you correct it. But battling, especially in social media, you never want to battle anything, especially if it's puppies or kids or a place where people vacation. I mean, you'll never win that battle. So you just have to try to, when you see something percolating, stop it before it does. And with the Amazon, I mean, we look at the Amazon and we still look at the satellite imagery and we go, folks, this is not good. We all need to stop buying from the Amazon. There's other places in the world that you can buy a product from, or you can buy Trex instead of teak. I mean, there's things we can do to stop that. So it's, you know, we look at this and go, okay, other industries step up to the plate. Yes, sir.
My name is Andrew Clark, second year MBA. I really appreciate everything you said. This has been really enlightening. And I'm curious, with your experience with supply lines and sustainability and how hot the topic it is, have you experienced or even seen from a distance suppliers refusing to provide products to a purchaser or an organization because that organization is not pursuing sustainability as strongly as the supplier would like? Almost like a reverse sustainability thing.
That's a great theory, but no.
They're in it to make money as well, so
Right.
no one's denying sales.
Yeah, because usually the impact is further upstream. So the impact will be coming from the supplier, not who they're selling to. So that's, you know, there's probably is some industries where that could be happening.
Like for instance, when you're talking about using the plastics, you guys supplying the plastics to Trex, or is it Trex?
Trex, yes.
Trex. If Trex was to sell to another company and that other company is saying that, if there's a scenario where there can be more sustainability had by the waste that their product has, whether it's the plastic wrap, and the Home Depot or the big other store doesn't recycle the material, the byproduct of that product. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and there are probably some industries where this second tier or third tier down is so bad that suppliers go, we don't want to be associated with them. We don't want to sell to them. I don't think we're probably in those industries, but I don't see it on our side. But the great thing about sustainability, you know, probably 10 years ago when it started being talked about in the boardroom is you go down and from my office, I look down at the outside of the lobby, so I see hundreds of people coming in pitching products every day in the Home Depot. Almost every single one of them today, either the first slide or the last slide, has, here's our sustainability model. So everybody's, I mean, people go, how do you sleep at night knowing what you know? Well, I sleep really well knowing that it's getting better. Everything we do, carbon emissions, everything that we do is getting better. So every supplier that we talk to has an angle where they're trying to reduce their impact. But great question. Yes, sir.
I'm Humphrey OKK. Thanks very much for being here. First of all, just to contribute to what Andrew asked, I think Porter's 5 forces would play a role there in terms of supply power. If they do have it, maybe you make that type of decision. Home Depot, I think, was able to do that because you guys have firepower. Back to my question, fiduciary duties that you owe your shareholders and stakeholders. Fortunately, the results from your analysis came positive, supported your approach. You guys were not, cutting out roots from the southern part of America. If it was to be the flip side, then analysis came back that you guys were wrong, how would you have managed that, knowing fully well that immediate decision would definitely impact your revenue? How would you have managed it?
Yeah, it's when I first took this role, I went up and sat down with Arthur Blank and Bernie Marcus and Pat Farah, which were 3 founders of the company. And I said, now I've been a lumber buyer, I've been a building materials buyer for quite a few years. I think I know what the issues are, but there may be some that I don't. So I need to know that you guys have my back if we uncover stuff that we shouldn't be in, and it's going to affect sales. If we look at Luan plywood coming from Malaysia, and we see that this is not sustainable, we need to get out of it, and it's hypothetically $100 million category, that you're okay if I say we're not going to make that $100 million next year. And they said, yes, but if you find it, figure out a way to do the magic to where we don't feel it. Make it, fix it up, bring in another product, go find something that works just as well from another country, bring it in as fast as you can. And luckily, when we did find something, we were able to transition really fast. And most of the public will understand. They go, listen, we're getting wood from this part of Malaysia. It's certified by the government. It's certified by these green markets, but we don't like what it's doing to transforming the native forest. So over the next 24 months, we're going to phase out of it to something else. People go, okay, great. So it can be done. And, the company just has to understand from the top to the bottom that when you find something like that, you've got to fix it. Great question. Yes, ma'am.
The policies you mentioned, like wood purchase and the chemical, are those for the Home Depot business, or is it like specific to the business?
Yes, and we have like 150 stores in Mexico, have probably 200 stores in Canada. We have HD Supply. So it's all of those. So whenever we make a policy, and if we don't, like we just came out with a policy 2 weeks ago that by, I forgot, I think it's 2028, 85% of all the handheld lawn equipment, so leaf blowers, trimmers, push mowers, 85% will be battery operated. But we did it in Canada and US only because Mexico is just not there yet. But we sat down with the Mexican merchants and said, okay, you need to come up with your own right behind this. And so that's the process that we do. So if we do it, we try to do it for every part of the business.
So you already mentioned that people are approaching you if they have an issue, they want to transition to the sustainable products. They already called the Home Depot. But so you are becoming like an industry leader for sustainability, for home improvement and the household products. So do you think like the companies, like big companies like Home Depot, have the responsibility to collaborate with government and make these policies as a government policy so that the impact will be like wider?
We like the government policies for the states and municipalities that are working on battery operated only products now. Makes our job easier. because they transition it and we don't have to leave that. It's hard for retailers to collaborate with the governments to come up with policies and stuff. It's usually two different work streams. So things like that, we don't wait for the government when we see a policy that we need to push through. And also you can't get ahead of it. You can't say, all right, we're just going to mandate that everything's going to be battery operated if the battery operated products aren't there or if they're not going to work, because it's going to backfire. And as soon as something inside the sustainability movement backfires, then it's always worse, because all the naysayers say, see, we told you so. We told you can't get lithium. We told you can't get cobalt. We told you can't dispose of these batteries. I mean, people ask me all the time, how can you promote this knowing that we don't have disposable for batteries? I said, because we're humans, and what do? We invent and innovate ourselves out of any issues that we come up with. Now, 10 years from now, we're going to have all kinds of waste streams and recycle programs for batteries that we don't have today. That's just what we do. But that doesn't mean that we don't do it. You've got to do it to get started, but not get too far over your skis. Yes, sir.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, so I wanted to ask you a question. You know, as the Chief Sustainability Officer of Home Depot, you're obviously addressing the environmental issues, but sustainability is a topic that spreads like further than just the environment, things like equality and poverty and education and things like that. So I was just wondering whether you had any sort of efforts or any sort of focus on any of those other branches of sustainability as a whole.
Yeah, luckily, I don't know how lucky it is, but I run 4 departments total. One is sustainability, the other one's product safety. So I'm over all product safety for the Home Depot. And the third big one is SER, social environmental responsible audits for factories. So I've got a group that, we go overseas, we go announced, unannounced into factories, and we go in with a 117 question checklist, and we pull people out of the factory. We sit down in their native language, how's it working here? Are they paying you? We've got all kinds of different policies around subcontracting. You can't tell us you won't make it there and then make it somewhere else. Forced labor. So we spend a lot of time on the social side of that, because really in any retailer, you're going to have 2 social issues. Social issues inside the company are going to be your employees. How are you treating your employees? How are you paying your employees? What are the benefits? And the second one is supply chain. And the supply chain is really developing country supply chains. You look at the US, if you don't like your job, you can always quit and go somewhere else. But you do have parts of the world where people are a little bit more invested in their job. They left their home, they signed up with some type of headhunter in their hometown to get to this new job. And this new job, they are committed to be there for a year or 2 years. Those folks need to be protected. And they need to understand that, there's certain things that Home Depot doesn't allow that supplier to do. But great question. Time for one more.
A lot of this sustainability today was revolving around lumber. Is Home Depot owned in timberland or lumber companies, or is this strictly a buyer?
Yeah, that's a lot of people ask that question. No, we're not vertically integrated in any of those type of businesses at all. Really, no businesses. So for us, we buy from manufacturers. So no timberlands, nothing like that. One more quick one.
Quick, I guess we're talking about career. So like if somebody wanted to become a chief sustainability officer, what advice would you have for them?
My advice would be to stay inside of the different departments and learn as much as you can. Major in sustainability, there's a lot of times a big difference between academic theory and practical application when it comes to sustainability. So learn all the academic theory that you can, but end up somewhere to where you're applying it on a daily basis, not as part of the job of sustainability, but running other divisions. The best sustainability officers are one that come from inside the business or different parts of the industry that know what it takes to run it, instead of just stepping in sustainability and saying, I've got these academic theories of how it should be ran. So, but then when you do step in and you've got the sustainability background, then you have the practical application, you're invaluable.
All right, we are gonna have to wrap it up there for today's conversation, but I wanna invite everyone to join me in thanking Ron and Rachel for, I think, a really amazing conversation. And I just wanna say, I think we're doing here what Ron, you just, right, talked about, and how do we prepare you, right, future business leaders to drive change, right, globally. And that's creating a bridge, right, between academic theory, what we're talking about here in the classroom, and the challenges, right, that are faced in the real world, and how companies like Home Depot and Ron in your role are addressing those challenges every day and looking to the future, right, to what are the sustainability challenges that we're creating, right, that we're going to have to address what's next, and we're hoping that we're preparing you to do just that. So thanks for all the great questions, thanks for the engaging conversation. Thanks for everybody who joined us over Zoom. And I don't know if you can stick around for a little bit, Ron,
stick
for
around.
a few questions.
Nice
And I just want to say there's a testament to Home Depot's deep engagement with your suppliers, because we also have here in the room Paula Alexander, who's the Senior Director of Sustainability at Clorox, which is one of Home Depot's suppliers. So thank you, Paula, for coming out today. You said I want to come and connect with Ron since it's going to be here on campus. So great example.
I didn't put the slide in because Glad is Clorox. I didn't put that in knowing Paul was gonna be here.
We didn't connect that. But good job. All right, thanks so much. If you can stick around, I encourage you to meet Ron, meet Paula. And thanks for a great class. Thanks for those of you who joined us, who are part of the class, but looking forward to our future conversations, and keep an eye out. We'll do more career speaker series, more career development resources. And so looking forward to being a resource to all of you. Thanks so much.